In under an hour, I am going to be speaking to a U.S. congressional panel, which is super exciting, but as you can imagine, could be a little scary, maybe even a little intimidating. And while I am a little nervous, it's more of an excited feel. It's more of an adrenaline rush at this point. So how is it that I can be so calm and so excited about speaking on such a grand stage? It's really kind of simple to explain. If you've ever listened to me before, you know that I'm a big proponent of positioning yourself as an expert on your own experience. Okay, I don't want you to position yourself or pitch yourself as the expert in your field, as the foremost expert, okay? Most of us are not that person and probably never will be, and that's okay. There is plenty of room to be a speaker and to be an expert in other realms without having to be the expert, okay? Trust me, because I've spoken for about 10 years and it's a big source of revenue for me, and I am not the world's foremost expert on anything. But the way that I calm my fears is that I only get up there and talk about my own experience. Because guess what? There's not another person in the room who knows more about my experience than I do. So even when I get asked to speak on a topic that might not sound like it's about me, it's always about me. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way, but the way that I craft my speech is to position myself as an expert on my own experience. So here's the example of how I'm going to do it today when I head over to the Hart Senate building. I'm so excited for this. I got asked to come speak with a group of attorneys from the major professional sports leagues and also from IMG, which manages a lot of the licenses for colleges and universities. And we are speaking about counterfeiting of sports merchandise, okay? So how am I an expert on that? I've never worked for a league or a team. Even when I was a practicing attorney, I wasn't practicing around intellectual property law. So how am I an expert? What am I supposed to say? So I'm moderating this panel, which takes a little of the pressure off, except I make the opening remarks. So I open up our entire presentation and I was asked to think about what I wanted to speak about. And I went back to this idea of being an expert on my own experience. Okay, how did I get invited to do this? It's because back in 2011, I was asked as a journalist to go on a ride along with an undercover cop and an attorney from Collegiate Licensing Company, which is now IMG College Licensing, to see how they deal with counterfeit goods being sold at sporting events. And it was a really interesting experience to walk around with this undercover cop and this attorney and go after people who were selling counterfeit t-shirts outside of this game. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to get up there and talk about legal cases I have no experience with, or talk about the enforcement of these trademarks, which I have no experience with. I am going to talk about what surprised me when I went on that ride along. I'm going to talk about my experience, and there's not a single other person in that room who knows more about that experience than I do. So I don't feel like a fraud. I'm not worried that anyone else in the room knows more than I do, because I'm getting up there and I'm speaking from my own experience. I'm tying it into the topic. I'm talking about something that a lot of the congressmen who will be in the room, they might have the same beliefs going into this that I had when I went into that ride along, and I can tell them now what surprised me about that ride along to help them start to learn the things they're missing. But I'm going to do it by talking about my own experience. And that's why I'm not nervous or scared, because it's easy to talk about something that you've been through. And you can apply this to almost any situation. I had a speech last week on a completely different topic. It was about, well, it's kind of different. It was about the business of college sports, particularly the finances of Purdue University's athletic department, because I was speaking to their booster club. I'm not a Purdue grad. In fact, I've never even been on the campus. So what was I going to talk about, okay? So I wrote a book about the business side of college sports, so I certainly talked about that. But I also talked about the experiences that led me to write the book and my experiences being on campuses and seeing different facilities at different universities. So again, I was positioning myself as an expert on my own experience. And I've done this in so many different venues, talking about PR, talking about personal branding, talking about sports marketing, sports business, whatever I agree to speak on. When I start crafting my speech, I think about how I can position myself as an expert on my own experience. And that really helps me feel more confident and really suppresses any of the fear or anxiety I might have around speaking. I hope that that's a trick that can work for you too. I would love to hear about the types of things that you speak on and what your fears and your hesitations are so that we can help you get past those. I'm going to go get ready to head over to the Senate building, but I hope the rest of you have a fabulous remainder of your day. Thank you. This is Christy Dash, President and Publicist of Guide My Brand.